God damn, I love that song from Star Fox. Unfortunately, sadly, I wasn't able to reach Venom 2 personally because of that damn Metal Crusher. Still, it's a very good song for the dogfight and what's ahead. Anyways, welcome back to the three-parter story arc of F-Zero ending it all, Destination Dark Star. Last time, Tinsel Steelus was captured by Deathborn, and after the fight with Jody, a very deadly one at that, she finally regained her senses thanks to Bert and Clank, whom she realized was actually her long-lost brother, Andy Summer. After all those years, he was finally alive, and thus it restored Jody. And so, she summoned the Galaxy Runner along with the Falcon Flyer and the Duelists, along with the Task Force and Tinsel's allies, and together, they're on their way to Dark Star. Alright, let's get this started. Alright, Lap 18, Destination Dark Star, Part 1. Rick couldn't get Tinsel out of his mind. He was so deep in his anxieties that he didn't care what else would happen. All he ever wanted was her, other than saving the galaxy and the remaining tainted member of the mobile task force, Dr. Stewart. He had a flashback to the other day when Tinsel was suddenly abducted by Black Shadow. She was about to emerge from the opaque cockpit into the light that was him. Rick! Tinsel! Rick Wheeler, we meet again. Actually, I don't need to reenact this. You already know from the last chapter. So, here's the flashback. Anyway, he was inside the Falcon Flyer, and the crew consisted of Rodney, Leon, Beastman, Gomar, and Shio, Drac, Octaman, Yugi, and Captain Falcon. The Galaxy Runner had all members of the task force, including Bert, Clank, Zell, and Joey. The young duelist handed him a cup of sweet coffee along with a saucer. Here, Rick. It's gonna be a long ride, so you have to stay sharp. I think this might help you out. Thank you. He accepted and took it in a few sips. It was actually a fresher broth than the one at the Falcon House. The hot sensation was welcoming for him. Yugi kept encouraging him they can help him bring Tinsel back and defeat Black Shadow, who happened to be Deathborn in Falcon's eyes. The duelists never doubted him for a second. They may not know them very well since they happen to be F-Zero pilots rather than duelists from the Shadow Realm. Nevertheless, he's positive that they'll somehow find a way to save her in the universe. He may not have a single move on him, not even during the championship. However, he was positive that with their monsters and magic, they can prevail and conquer their fears of the unknown. Still, it would be an exhilarating experience since they never dealt with threats outside of Earth. This made Rick wonder what the demons said. You alone can determine the galaxy and your friends, yet still you've the key to prevent this calamity. Black Shadow said I'm the one who will turn the tides. He demanded for the reactor mites, but what does that have to do with me? It was unseen through the visor, but the bounty hunter shifted his eyes toward the conversation. There's something that only he knew, and he never bothered to tell anyone. Yugi had his doubts. I'm not sure either, Rick, but Yami and I both know that you and Falcon can overcome this. He beat both Black Shadow and Deathborn before, even the Creator Ghosts, and I'm sure he can do it again with you by his side. He and I have something in common. We are champions in each of the tournaments we participated in. I'm just as confident that you two can also make a difference. You just need to believe in him and yourself. Nothing can stop you. With a grin, the detective thanked him once more. Then an alarm blared, as did the Galaxy Runner. The lights turned red, and all the heroes were completely shocked at what they saw. As soon as both Jody and Falcon silenced their ships, they gazed upon a very ominous cloud of sorts. The exterior was extraordinary, as the vessel itself was entirely covered with layers upon layers of energy. It was organic in appearance, looking like a spherical storm cloud. We've reached our destination. Prepare yourselves. Right, Falcon. We all know Black Shadow doesn't fool around. We need everything we have to penetrate through this. Use extreme caution. The sacred puzzle shined and it was Yugi's cue to stand and fight. I guess now's the time. Everyone, stand back. The relic illuminated and moved slowly. Then his body was engulfed in light. Yu-Gi-Oh! He transformed into the legendary 5,000-year-old pharaoh Yami. When the aura dissipated and the symbol on his forehead faded, he looked nearly exactly like the kid, except he was a few feet taller and had a more earnest expression. How did you... I am the ancient Egyptian pharaoh Yami. You have no need to fear me. This is only temporary. My soul lies dormant inside the Millennium Puzzle. I'm an expert player of the Shadow Games and a master of the dual monsters. We shouldn't be intimidated by the darkness ahead. I will give Black Shadow everything I got. It's kind of obvious since he had stronger monsters and trap magic cards. So what's our plan of attack, Yug? We will use all non-organic monsters. We are in space, Joey, so there is no gravity nor atmosphere. We just have to rely on our more magical and mechanical abilities instead. Looking at the unusual mass and sensing great evil, he challenged. I know you're in there somewhere, Black Shadow. It's quite predictable since he'd use fear and bile to hide himself with. But no matter. Light can pierce through the darkness. I now activate the Swords of Revealing Light! They acted as a barrier and a revelation to the whereabouts of the Emperor of Brutality. There, dead ahead! Yami drew a card that had a series of blades made by pure energy. They covered the Falcon Flyer. It won't be easy. The ship can move rapidly from within, and he can attack from anywhere. Then we'll just have to fight back head on. I'm on it. Wait! Black Shadow knows we're coming. We have to increase our defenses. You got it, Yug. That's using the old noodle. Use the Aurora armor while the Swords of Revealing Light held. Pink Suit came in front of the Galaxy Runner. There were some rapid blue flashes coming from the outer hull. Blackness looked as it was lighting up like the 4th of July. Then a gigantic field of bright blue plasma headed straight for them. Missiles shot out from the Galaxy Runner, but the plasma negated it. That's impossible! Brace yourselves! It was so huge that it went up against both of the Radiant Source and Joey's shield until they wore off entirely. The force field went with them. They're gone! Bullets ran down on the both cruisers, ricocheting from the windows. It's gonna take more than that to stop us. I will summon all my magnetic warriors, Beta, Alpha, and Gamma in attack mode. Yami did just that. The trio, possessing those powerful magnets, emerged with Gamma in the center, spread out, and the bullets were gathered using their gravitational pulls. The onslaught only left a few scratches on both sides. They fired back, and the ship was nearly unscathed. Unfortunately, the cloud structure was too much for them since Earth was ineffective against dark elements. They were vulnerable to negative aura, leaving the gang open. This is almost like the Dark Castle of Illusions. Plasma Cannon destroyed 2 magnet warriors and left Gamma weak. You wanna play rough? I'll show you! Joey laid a card face down. Yugi summoned Curse of Dragon and equipped it with Excalibur to double its attack. On top of that, it was a dark type. Black Shadow unleashed his fury as streams of electricity hit the serpent. Activate Track Card! It revealed the magical arm shield. Gamma dissipated on contact, leaving the dragon vulnerable. But Joey, there aren't any monsters for you to control on the other side. I know, but I could still use it to defend you. At least you can attack with your monster. I'll join too. Jody loaded a barrage of missiles and aimed toward the core. Darkstar was distant, but they made a decent reach. Yami used his monster's fireball along with it. Nice shooting, Joey! Don't get your hopes up. We may have penetrated its defenses, but I'm sure Black Shadow has some tricks up his sleeve. Urgh, I can't hold the light show much longer. Damn it! It looks like he's turning up the heat, but so am I. I sacrificed my curse of dragon. By sending a level 5 monster to the graveyard, I now draw on one of my greatest weapons. I'll fight intergalactic fire with fire. Behold, the 5-star Twilight! The explosive family came out. There was Karibu, Kariba, Karibi, and Karibo. They soared toward Darkstar and their corresponding stars at such a velocity. Yet again they destroy the exterior, along with the flyer and the runner to grow closer. All right, we're on our way, Tinsel. Uh-oh. With that dual monster, Yugi can't tribute summon any more monsters. So now what? Like all the other racers, even she was confused on what was going on. This was a tough spot, even for Yami. Then he saw something in his peripheral vision. Hey guys, come here, look at this! The heroes rushed over, and the Untech geek pointed down. They followed their partner's gazes and saw a planet get surrounded by dark violet orbs. They shot out from the dark star's underside and they started orbiting the world below. It began to implode on itself. Every onlooker was petrified. According to the data Clank said, they lost planet Uma 31, plus 2 others have already disintegrated. Now we know what we're up against. They all looked at Yami. He encouraged them not to focus on their mission, but rather follow their hearts and the people they deeply care for. For him, it was his friends and grandfather back on Earth. Deathborn tends to taint the body and mind like he did with those in the task force, but he can't possibly corrupt the heart and soul. And that's what truly matters. The true essence of a champion cannot be tamed. I learned that from you, Falcon. Then we've no time to waste. Let's bring the fight to them. Shield was activated once Rick, Falcon, and the others entered, denying access for the Galaxy Runner. What just happened? It seems that a force field blocked our path. It's up to Rick and Falcon now. It's obvious since Black Shadow only wants them for the reactor mites. Oh, I hope they'll be okay. Don't worry, Lucy. I'm positive Rick and the others will make it out soon. Godspeed, Ricky. Don't let us down, you hear? It's all yours, Yug. In the dim-lit chamber, everyone exited the Falcon flyer. They were so anxious on putting an end to Black Shadow, especially Rick, Falcon, and Yami. We're here. I don't like the smell of this. This place is completely shrouded in malevolence. We have to stick together and stay focused. Yami's right. The universe is in our hands, as are Tinsel and Dr. Stewart. Let's go. Tinsel, I will find you. I promise. Please wait for us. They wound up in a large elliptical area. They were smack dab in the middle. There was a dark fog surrounding them. A violet fog. It became thicker and more massive as it lingered amongst the ominous olive-green walls. As it stayed, everyone exposed to the shady substance as thick as pea soup made them feel a bit lightheaded. They continued to look for their missing comrades. The more affected they became, all except for Falcon and the Pharaoh. Millennium Puzzle and the Merchant Championship belt were the only things that saved them. Each pilot was dropping like rabbits. First was Leon. He was more susceptible thanks to his strong nose. Then Chris, Gomor and Shio, Drac, with a huge thud, and finally Rick. Yami and Falcon couldn't awaken them. Falcon only said if he could conquer their nightmares, they can still live on. The ancient king was curious as to how he knew all that. Falcon knew him as the Skull, the undead user of the most lethal black magic from all the vast reaches of space. Occasionally he dealt with him during his bounty hunting missions, and in this case there was nothing they could do. Although there was just one thing. Helpless and trapped in their own subconscious, They didn't notice the appearance of the apparition that was Black Shadow. So, you two were the lucky ones that withstood my peer's greatest spell yet. Black Shadow! Why couldn't you just kill them when you had the chance? Oh, that's where you're wrong, Falcon. You see, I intend to kill each of your friends except for Rick. I have a surprise waiting for him. The skull had the foolproof plan on manipulating their minds and torturing their souls while they remain trapped within their own fears for all eternity. There is no better way than that. So, you rely on your sideshow freak instead of facing each of us head on? You're nothing but a coward. And here I thought you were almighty and powerful. But you just do nothing but fall into the shadows, just like what Panic used to do. Ah, the nefarious Pharaoh Yami. How wonderful to meet you again. Here to stand by the irritating bird, I see. The two of us, Black Shadow. Just make your move. Very well. I can only do so much to penetrate it. It was earthbound for 5,000 years. Take this! Two blinding energy ropes enwrapped the duo. Yami dropped his card even though it was face down. They were lifted into the air about 20 feet. In a desperate attempt, Yami squeezed down his eyes and the symbol of Watch It appeared on his forehead. Time to call on a spellcaster of my very own, Dark Magician! He opened his eyes. The dual monster communicated telepathically. Fuchsia-colored magic wielder emerged from its imprisonment and unleashed his wand, freeing both Yami and Falcon. Even the darkest clouds can shatter in the wind. How did you do it, Yami? With the help of the Millennium Puzzle, I was able to communicate with my Dark Magician. I could read the dual monsters and my opponent's thoughts and feelings, as well as manipulate them. But that's only when the relic is being unharmed and at its peak. It's all about unity, because the pieces are one. This reminded Falcon of the belt, and he realized that darkness wasn't only used for evil purposes. Unfortunately, they lost sight of Black Shadow. Even with the fog gone, the enemy vanished with it. There wasn't any time, so both heroes had no choice but to stand by. Rick heard an alarm, only it really wasn't what he thought it would be. Attention all units! There is a suspect escaping in a brown sedan, heading for the Brooklyn Bridge. Is that? He kept hearing the cackling again. Soda? He can't be alive! I can't believe this! He slammed down on the gas pedal and noticed he was in the same cruiser from 150 years, the Dragon Ghost, Clank called it. Oh, the diabolical maniac. You're next, Wheeler! Ha ha ha! It's about time I'd reunite you with Haruka forever! Oh yeah? I destroyed you once, I can do it again! He continued toward the last stretch as the wheels screeched into a sharp corner. Zoda fired numerous bullets to the door of the driver's seat and kicked it into the air. The slab was heading toward Rick. No! He immediately slammed on the brakes and covered himself as he ducked and put his denim jacket over his head. The broken door hit the windshield just seconds later. Debris rained on him. He felt some sharp pangs. After a few agonizing seconds that stretched onward to an eternity, he finally removed his coat, away from his sore scalp. What he saw surprised him, as the sedan and Zoda were nowhere in sight. It was as if they'd vanished, like some simple magic trick. He sat there in the empty passageway. I may have lost the perp, but I hadn't lost my life this time. I'd already beaten you in your own game, Soda. I fear it no more. Do you hear me, Black Shadow? My nightmare is over. Yes, your dream is over. Now your worst possible nightmare is about to begin. figure looked so familiar with its intimidating presence of all that elaborate armor, its astounding size and massive cape. Rick! Are you alright? I think so. I was chasing after Zoda before he was just a regular criminal wearing a prison garb. He didn't look like what he was before Tinsel and I froze him. Tinsel! Wait, Rick. Your friends are still trapped in the dreamscape. I'm sorry. I don't have time to dilly-dally. Tinsel needs me. I must stop Black Shadow and Deathborn. He admired his strong resolve, so they let him pass. Falcon and Yami resumed watching over them. Next was Beastman. He was in an opaque master bedroom. He was unarmed. He possessed only a flashlight in the dead of night. The room was quiet. He heard scratches and hissing from the doors. Psst. Huh? Who's there? He knew that only the natural wild beast would make such noises. Let's see. Just read it yourself. I don't feel like doing this. He didn't have a weapon, so he only made out a scene. There was a grump and a snap. That alone brought him back to his early childhood. Only a gator would make that noise. And he was traumatized by their sneering maws, their bleeding gums, their pointed razor-sharp teeth, and their scaly hides as durable as tanks. Chris remembered being attacked by one, and his family were traveling through the Everglades. They were unexpectedly swarmed. Chris managed to stay alive, though the deep emotional and physical scars were laid upon him. Never wanted to take anyone about that unfortunate experience, nor the abrasions. Became very skilled at hiding them, and vowed to be the galaxy's best hunter. Even still, his worst fear lied in the heart of his herpetophobia. Checked every nook and cranny. He fought off the gator. Like I said, it's kind of long. Just read it yourself. I don't feel like reading this. So, you can pause that if you want. I don't know if it's incredibly accurate, but I managed to look it up. It wasn't over yet. The gator snarled and its eyes gleamed with a red malice. Chris slowly backed away while still facing it. Reptilian steadily grew closer to its midnight snack. He turned and ran in a straight line while it gave chase. Fortunately, the animatronic lost its energy and panted profusely before retreating beneath the bed. That was more than enough for the beastman to bear. Next was Drac. He was in the hangar with his partner Roger. They were soaring through sunny clouds and were happy as pigs in feces. They finally found ownership of the missing machines. But then, something went wrong as the blip was shutting down and taking a nosedive. Magenta Giant used his massive body as a cushion, protecting Roger from collision. The strong man was knocked out cold from it, though Drac was unscathed. He managed to stand up using his cramped legs, and everywhere he turned flames were licking the aircraft. Drac had to make a choice. Lose Roger or their business. He already had the answer as he took his partner out. The Emperor of Brutality came across two unsuspecting aliens within his interplanetary hideout. Zoda's killer brought in two inhabitants from the planet Huckmine. They stood side by side, and of course, it was Gomar and Shio. Oh, Black Shadow! We came here to assist you. We wanted to be a part of Dark Million for so long. Can you please recruit us? We've been such huge fans of yours. We can work together with the organization and do some evil deeds. This could be fun, right, partner? You bet, partner. Shook hands with one another. Zoda's killer gave them some irritable looks. What can you Furicakes do for me? By winning F-Zero races, of course. Yeah, we heard the mobile task force is very hard to boot, so we were thinking you could use our talent of teamwork to defeat them and win prize money from them. He thought about it for a moment. Only the fewer cakes were known to have a unique lifestyle of finding partners as soon as they emerged from their seed pods. They were very cooperative to one another. However, from the looks of it, they seemed so different. Very well. I will take the small fry since you have quite a brain. You, on the other hand, are as dumb as dog shit. Please, Lord Shadow, I would do anything. I promise I'll do better. Just give me a chance. Please don't send my partner away. We are in sync, he and I. We do stuff together. Please don't take him without me. He was perplexed. On the other hand, he's far too short to be of any use. He shoved him toward his friend, causing them to topple each other. You two are weak and complete opposites. How do you expect to be the galaxy's most threatening villains? You two are nothing but made from manure. The Huck miners couldn't fathom what they just heard. Their dream was to buy a machine of their very own and steal money to get one. Since they thought Black Shadow was so thrilling to them, they decided to work together at being his top minions. Figured they'd be unstoppable working with him. However, Black Shadow, their so-called hero, rejected them like broken dolls. You know what? Tinsel's right about you. She'd never discard us like that. She knows who we are and what we're capable of. We are the Furicates. Yeah! Tinsel and her friends think we're more than just pieces of manure. We always thought you were the big bad, but now we see you as a bully. How dare you! Soda, Miss Killer, take them away. No need, Lord Shadow. We can throw ourselves out. We don't need you guys. Black Shadow commanded death soldiers. They drew their guns. Shio carried Gomar out as fast as they could. Bullets licked them, but they escaped. Ooh, that was close. We must leave here and quickly. We must now be gone. She was right all along, partner. Indeed she was. They were firebombed by Black Shadow's craft. Fortunately, it was outnumbered by the Galaxy Runner and the Falcon Flyer. Hey, our friends are here. I sure hope they'd forgive us for what we did. They will, since we validated that we can work alongside us and help people out while doing it. Our real dream is just to win F-Zero racers while sticking together. I'm in, partner. Because of the comfort of their allies, they didn't seem nervous. Not even about their criminal record. They had friends earning their redemption just like Octoman, most of the members of the task force itself. There's no better place than that. And there's Leon, a desolate racetrack in silence. Miles of sand, as well as distant dormant volcanoes. It was night. The ground itself looked like a dark purple just nearing matching the sky. There was a full moon completely littered with craters, visible to the naked eye. He ended up in Silence, a planet that had its name since there wasn't any organisms existing on this deserted plain. Thus it was only known for its races, which ironically made it contradict its namesake. I always liked Silence, but mostly the original course. He was just 12 with the interplanetary war, and by 16 participated in F-Zero, and he had to tackle that Ace League course. And as I've said before, the special game F-Zero BS Grand Prix 2 actually had an advanced version of Silence, Silence 2. I highly recommend checking it out in Ephraim's LP. So he was just dealing with modified machines that were mechanically operated by remote controls. Kind of like a mix between the orange and the explosive cars. I decided to put them together. Like I said, you can read it yourself. I don't feel like doing it that much. It was taking the lead until the booster was activated. There was something very peculiar, as they had no pilots. And sooner or later, he actually came across a doppelganger as him. Lunar eclipse made the earth glow a bit red, almost like lava. And so did that evil wolf. What? What are you doing with all these cars? He was terrified when he got his answer after they were speeding ahead and had sensors blinking at the side. His best bet was to be careful and to avoid crashing into them. By the time he passed a few, they were closing in on him as if they had no regard to their welfare. Just pure destruction. Caused hefty damage to his machine. They were twice as powerful as the mines. What was worse was Leon accelerating, barely falling off the course with their lack of guardrails. Regardless, his only adversary was the evil angler. He had to beat it to the goal. Leon had outsmarted it, and he eventually took in first, and then destroyed cells as they collide toward each other along the walls. Eventually, it was down to both him and his rival. So the Yearn machines accelerated too much and left up the course. Copy had an improvement in sideswiping, so it hit the original when they got to the broad road ahead. Gave Leon the advantage as it got a slight nod. She recovered, and shot past the canny clone, reached the finish line first as he wasn't fast enough. Whoosh! Leon won. Yeah! I finally won the race! Although he didn't get what was expected. By the time he woke up, the team reunited, and they were met with Yami and Falcon. Former said they have all risen and broken a black magic spell over them. As he said before, it was possible that they could achieve anything as long as the heart and souls were pure, even if their minds were crumbling down from the masterful manipulation of sorcery from the skull. Black Shadow wasn't behind all this? That made the other victims cringe. They all looked up after a mysterious voice screeched from the upper balcony. The skull? Sterling Levon! His head and his limbs were seen as the slightest shade of pale. There was the skull. Impossible! How could you mortals withstand my most fearsome techniques? Who are you? I had you in my deathly clutches. Think again, numbskull. Yami told Sterling that Drax survived because he saved himself and his partner from complete destruction over their delivery. Rick overcame his dread reliving the past. Chris dealt with his childhood fear over an alligator. Leon won a death race, and Gomar and Shio realized that working for the villain wasn't smart, though they came to the epiphany that their parents had their backs. Yami made one last stand. Their minds and hearts were made one and pure while they overcame their fears, and made them stronger than they ever were before. But you have no heart, Sterling. You hadn't had one in over 2 centuries. You may have bested in the F-Max competition, but not in F-Zero, nor in science and dark magic. Your plans had constantly failed on more than one occasion, as you only relied on strategy and intellect alone, without any passion or affection, just as any soulless creature would. Friendship and ambition are what drives me. Allow me to show you one of my shadowy arts. As the Dark Ancient Protector of Egypt and the Master of the Shadow Games, I now send you into oblivion! Stuck out his head and vanished the skeletal carcass, shattering his long-gone spirit, and his body collapsed in a heap. It was almost the same way he used his punishment on Panic. That was amazing. I wouldn't want to get on your bad side. Don't be alarmed, Leon. I only do this to protect the ones I care about, as should you. Puzzle illuminated, and a wall of darkness hammered into the Pharaoh. Falcon gave him a hand as he dived in, pushing it back with all their strength, hoping their bodies wouldn't shatter. Yamin Falcon ordered the pilots to evacuate and search for Rick, Tinsel, and Dr. Stewart while they deal with their nemesis back with a vengeance. Whew. Man, that was long. Dark Reactor idea and the Dark Star's defenses were, believe it or not, from the original Star Trek movie, not the remake, the motion picture. I find that very underrated. I don't care what anyone else says. I love that movie, especially the director's cut, because it has more footage. So Dark Star was pretty much inspired by Voyager, actually, as the intruder cloud, including its weaponry and its appearance. Also, there was a spectacle when Uma 31 blew up. It was kind of pointless because Zoda had a different origin, but yeah, that was from Feature 2. Very terrifying, but I wish they weren't used just for show. Sensors. So, dream sequences were the most difficult I had to come up with. Again, it was thanks to my collaborators, especially Revived Racer. I added more details as I went, especially the Ace League. Wasn't going to miss out on silence. Herpetophobia is classified as fear of snakes and or reptiles. In Chris's case, though, he fears alligators and crocodiles. The setup was an inspiration for Five Nights at Freddy's 4. I got that idea from Fawful's Minion when he described his top 10 spookiest levels. I don't know, perhaps I'll show that in the link, I don't know. So, part 2 will be coming up. Until then, this is the Ecron Writer signing out. Welcome back to another episode of F-Zero Ending It All. Last time, Tinsel Steelus got captured by Deathborn, and Rick, the Duelist, the Task Force, Falcon, and their allies have managed to breach it. Well, actually, it was Falcon and his team that managed to go inside Dark Star, and the force field was activated, disallowing the Galaxy Runner. So, Leon, Drac, Rick, Beastman, Gomor, and Shio have dealt with their own subconscious fears. They were able to triumph. Thus, Yami actually shattered the skull's bones, literally. But Yami and Falcon had their hands full with Deathborn, or rather Black Shadow. So, Rick continues to look for Tinsel. So, let's get this thing going. Alright, lap 19, Destination Dark Star Part 2. Along the way, Rick found one of the capsules he recognized he was in. All of them were empty until he heard a distinctive sound that was almost like a cricket, only it wasn't an insect. Instead, it was some little bizarre life form that looked similar to a green jellyfish, with a translucent membrane enclosing a red nucleus which almost resembled a brain. Out of empathy, he drained the tank and unlocked the hatch. The extraterrestrial floated over Rick for a few moments. Let me just set the atmosphere real quick. Come on, you're free! He was pretty surprised that an organism like that would actually hover over the ground rather than just swim. He made some more of those noises, probably as a way of saying thank you until it just soared by. He was then at a standstill in the middle of a triple crossroad. All three chambers looked the same. They were immersed in a cerulean sky that grew from dark to light, and each had a skid mark of a triangular spaceship with two exhausts that dragged its body. Somehow the passages have been duplicated to confuse intruders. This was sort of a mind game for him, but one was real and two were illusions. He decided to take the middle, but he hesitated. If he mistakenly took the wrong one, the aperture might close and he'll be trapped. His heart raced and his head began to get foggy as he was losing his focus. The mind must be clear and sharp. The heart must be pure to achieve anything. He heard two familiar voices. What matters is what's inside you. Ignore the other factors. It must come from within. Yami. Falcon! He then took a few breathers to clear his head and closed his eyes. They shut open after he felt a slight breeze. He took the middle path and climbed up a steep hill. The floor was very unusual. It was sturdy at some spots, but also slippery. It almost felt like walking on a stormy cloud. When he reached a clearing, there was a narrow bridge as black as coal. There was a bright drop which seemed to go on for 2 astronomical units. Suddenly he saw 2 women wrestle in the center. Tinsel got involved in a scrimmage with Miss Killer. Tinsel! Rick rushed over to the scene, but the 2 clashing females nearly fell to their deaths. The surface sloped a little. The area was wide, though there were some small pits at each opening. Then it narrowed toward the bridge. Both women were hanging by measly thread. If I go down to hell, I will take you with me, Miss Killer threatened. She pulled her down more to the point where she was nearly losing her grip, where only her fingers were hanging tough. No! Rick interrupted the drama. Rick, please help me! Underneath his eyes he also saw Haruka. She glanced over at him as innocent as her dark facade can be. Rick, you have to save one of us, or we will both perish. You have to believe me. Black Shadow will want the both of us dead. One must sacrifice her life for the other. You'll have to choose quickly, Rick. Rick! Don't listen to her. She's still Miss Killer. Black Shadow would mostly want me dead to feed your survivor's guilt and make you suffer. I don't think there's any way I'm saving Haruka. I'm sorry. Ah! Rick, pull me up. I'll forgive you for abandoning me at the Brooklyn Bridge and going into cold sleep for 150 years. I knew you'd be in a new world in time, but just now I have faith in you. I'm very happy to see you again. Let's go back to where things once were. Don't let me die, Rick. Not your long-lost love. Your face may be Haruka's, but your soul is a demon's. Rick had to make a crucial decision and fast, but his mind kept reflecting on Haruka. Rick, help me, please! Save me now! No! Rick, no! Don't listen or she'll pull me down! Remember when you saw her when you were under anesthesia? Rick, you have to believe me! He then recalled her kindred spirit in the heavens. Rick, you must listen to me. My spirit has left my body 150 years. That woman named Miss Killer was a byproduct from Black Shadow. He was the one who reanimated my vessel and transformed it into an abomination. Seeing him in shock, she grabbed and caressed his hands. Dark Million must be stopped, and the galaxy must be saved. Otherwise, I can't find rest. You're the only one who could do this, Rick. I know you will, but you mustn't do it alone. Tinsel and your friends are the only ones who are willing to fight by your side. She needs you now, more than ever. Haruka! Do not grieve for me. I've watched over you for the last century and a half. I can take care of myself up here, but you still need someone by your side. And that someone is Tinsel. You gave your love to me. Now share it with her. I want you to be strong as she can help you heal your wounds. Please, Rick, give her a chance, and prevent Black Shadow from succeeding at all costs. I will. Do not Miss Killer intimidate you. Just remember, my spirit will always remain in your heart. Do not let it be tainted again. Go in peace, Rick. Making the millisecond decision, his heart warmed. Then he ran and grabbed for Tinsel. The dark witch finally fell towards her demise. It's with a screech. I can't intimidate it. But with both firm hands he pulled her up. They both caught their breath and Tinsel looked down. It was as if Miss Killer killed herself, following through the white clouds. The exterior appeared to be a far more darker shade of a midnight blue. She apologized profusely that he didn't have the chance to save her in time. She wanted him to do so by recovering her, reviving her memories from long ago, no longer be the vile Black Shadow made her to be. Miss Killer's soul was just too dark while she kept on intimidating Rick. I wanted you and Haruka to reunite, but I couldn't. Please, forgive me. She shut her eyes as she sobbed while more tears dropped. No. She looked up. I won't forgive you. That sliced her heartstrings. She felt as if it was broken, shattered into many shards. She absolutely knew Rick would be so uncompassionate towards her. After what she had done, I can't forgive you because there is nothing to forgive. Her throat tightened at what she just heard. He looked into them and assured that he knew Miss Killer was there from the start. Haruka warned him that she was his creation by Black Shadow. She even called it an abomination. She also told him that her reanimated corpse once mentioned that she was raised by Black Shadow since she was born. It was clear from the get-go that there was a point of no return. Haruka herself will always be in his heart until she could find rest if Dark Million is destroyed. She knew Rick's the only one who could do it. She accepted that. Tinsel, you're the one for me. Thank you, Rick. Tell Haruka the same. I was so worried about your survivor's guilt, and I always cared for you, but I never thought you were ready to let Haruka go. I love you, Rick. You're the only man in my life. I love you too, Tinsel. More than you'll ever know. Recognizing who it belonged to, Rick parted immediately, followed with Tinsel close at his heels. They ran straight, and the colossal chamber kept getting larger by the second, as if they were ants by comparison. Specks of light littered the floor, and there were some more hills, then a skinny pathway overlooking the white brick floor. Finally, they followed the open apertures to a dead end. 500-meter pit awaited them as the passage ended within a cerulean sky. Below was nothing but fog. To each side they saw what looked like orange glowing reactor mites encased in spiky circulars. Again from the intruder cloud. Black Shadow! You hide like a coward! If it's me you want, then come out! Ah! When Rick looked back, he immediately saw the demon. If it's me you want, it's me you get! Rick! She cried for him, laying helplessly. She was terrified when he turned on him. It seems I don't need you after all. Your reactor mites are mine for the taking. You served your purpose for helping me find them, and now I should eliminate that metal Captain Falcon once I'm finished with you. No! Yes! The broken side of his face sneered. His arrows narrowed. The chosen one. Rick's eyes grew wide. How I wish you'd serve us again. But no matter. My precious dream has finally been realized. Earth will be my final destination, and I will incinerate everything in this rigid universe. Don't do it, Black Shadow! You shall know how a traitor should suffer. Now, die! Beastman, Gomer, and Shio, Drac, Rodney, and Leon ganged on him. They all tackled him straight to the ground. They wouldn't stop ripping him apart. What do you think you're doing? Can't you see you caused enough harm to the universe already? We'll clobber you down to stop this madness. You think we haven't finished you yet? After what you did to my father? You dare to ruin our best friends? You're a threat to us all. You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. I'm not done with you yet, Wheeler. Leon licked Rick like a loyal dog. I'm okay, Leon. I'm okay. Black Shadow didn't harm us. Just barely. How did you guys get here? The maze was very confusing. It was pretty easy, actually. Aside from Leon's outstanding sense of smell, we just heard the commotion and followed you here. Oh, and your friends had quite a predicament before they were awakened. They said they experienced their own fears because of a spell done by the skull. And then Yami sent him to oblivion using his ancient techniques. Everyone talked about their corresponding experiences. Even Rick's. Fog eventually cleared, revealing a walkway of neon green and white flooring. It was almost like it was made of some decorative ceramic. As they trekked further, the sky grew into a more sinister shade of indigo. Up ahead there was a huge opaque chamber. The hole was enormous, but it was surrounded by a 5-pointed aperture, as if it resembled a hand waiting to grab the wanderers. Suddenly there were some rapid flashes, thinking it was lightning. Heads up! Everyone ducked for cover as they heard a very noisy roar. It grew louder as it went closer, and they covered their ears and eyes. Then it grew fainter as it went over their heads. Sparks went with a plasma orb. Is everyone okay? Yeah, that was close. Rick, what was that? Must be another one of those devices. Black Shadow said we're getting closer to Earth. Then he'll consume the whole universe once he gets all 6 mites. I hope we're not too late. There was yet another dead end, but Rick knew there was only one way. Meanwhile, Yami and Falcon confronted Black Shadow. I will rectify the mistakes I've made by no longer underestimating you. He unleashed a volley of dark energy, but the Millennium Puzzle shielded the victim with light. The ancient artifact was too much for Black Shadow, blowing away more of his face. Demon covered the damage and he just laughed it off. You're quite the cocky one, Black Shadow. On the contrary, you're the one who is just as foolhardy. So, Black Shadow, you show your true form. He observed Deathborn's actual appearance. Then Falcon warned he's more powerful than his former lackey. The black bull in his shell crumbled to dust and the dark Schneider replaced it, rising from the depths like a bat out of hell. Apparently Deathborn and Black Shadow had merged since the creator ghosts were vanquished by Falcon a year prior. According to him, Deathborn has died 3 times, but after each time he was brought back to life by exchanging his real body for mechanical ones. Through these procedures, he has become essentially immortal. The device was installed within his body, allowing him to travel fully through space, making it impossible for him to mysteriously appear anywhere at any time. Then banished those he dislikes to the outer limits of space, where they became drifting vagabonds. Deathborn was plotting to take over the universe, starting with a disguise as Black Shadow. His plan was to attain the ultimate power that would allow him to determine life and death on every star and planet as he saw fit. He himself never raced in the Grand Prix except during the horrific accident in Firefield. Other than that, he only took part in the underground races. He used to employ Black Shadow to win the overworld races, using whatever means were necessary. He was the champion of the underworld as well as the chess master of this whole ordeal. From brainwashing the task force, to making an alliance with Zoda, Miss Killer, and others, to obtaining power from the reactor mites. So, it was you this whole time, wasn't it? You're obviously no different than Merrick, albeit on a larger scale. Falcon and I are the only ones left, able to withstand your cowardice and treachery. This ends now! Have at you! He made a counterattack, but Deathborn aimed straight at Yami. Only this time, he was surprised he wasn't injured, but there was dark energy on the puzzle, toward the Eye of Widget. He looked down in shock and sunk to the ground. Yami, no! Falcon, it's all up to you and Rick now. Retrieve him as soon as possible. The universe is in your hands. He was being replaced by the young Yugi. He immediately startled and clutched his puzzle. No! Ah, Pharaoh? Pharaoh! There was no response. Millennium Puzzle was nothing but a perilous ornament. We've tried. There's nothing more we can do. He's not the same as he was before. He's stronger. You can't beat him again. Neither can I. Yes, we can. Seems the time of the legend has come into fruition. Legend? It is Rick who can turn the tables now. Let me explain. Using the Dragonbird EX, they entered inside the open aperture, inside the dark reactor core. It was up ahead. All he had to do was tread on those octagonal platforms to get there. There was a bomb-protected door that said, "Keep out." There was a radioactive symbol beneath it. Rick, Tinsel, and Rodney tried the encrypted door. As they got to it, an announcement rang. Warning. Do not enter without authorization. In that female voice, it kept repeating itself. Rick figured he'll enter using the ID he had while he was being brainwashed. Tinsel worried it'd be invalid. Lo and behold, it was. Then there was Octamian? Let's just say I was a little stowaway. I know my good friend the Skull would pull something on all of you, so I decided to slip in as soon as he was gone. Thanks to that Egyptian guy. You can't possibly go any further without me. Let me help. Thanks to his ID card, the titanium door was unlocked. The announcer shut off and they entered the restricted lab containing the blood falcons. Cephalopod decided to stay put and watch their backs as they trekked through the dark corridor. Each tank lining up the walls contained a sinister Captain Falcon copy. It was attached to the dark reactor core. It was easy for Black Shadow to make multiple replicas by using a microscopic strand of his DNA. Combined with these two factors, the amount was just infinite, said Rodney. Then it's settled. We've got to destroy this laboratory. I knew there was more than one Falcon. Yeah, you were the one who told me that, remember? But the Skull's demise, the thrall over Dr. Stewart, was broken. He collapsed and lost consciousness after that. Tinsel and Rick attempted to waken him, and a desperate attempt was done by Rodney. Dad! He knelt and laid his hands on his clammy face. Dad! Dad! You can't stay like this. We all need you right now. We can't defeat Black Shadow and save the universe, not without your expertise. You alone can help us deal with the adversity. Please, wake up! Despite the imploring, he didn't. Rodney turned to Rick as he recollected what he did to him. Rick, you have to bring him back. You're the only one who can do this. Please. I can try. He wasn't sure of himself. He could lose some of his own energy. Still, he laid a warm hand on his forehead, saying his name. The other two watched in silence. His face was vacant as he opened his eyes, hardly recognizing where he was or who was with him. His mind was almost like a blank slate. Dad, it's us. Don't you remember me? I'm your son, Rodney. Son? Yes, you raised me. You also have a daughter, too, Luna. We became very promising physicians thanks to you. Oh, and these are my friends, Rick Wheeler and Tinsel Steelis. They're from the Elite Mobile Task Force, and so are you. Until that fateful night when Black Shadow darkened your mind. You have to remember us. You're the only one left. The team is complete now. Strengthening of engram synapses were crucial for the brain's ability to access or retrieve specific memories. Consumption must have weakened those synapses and impaired the neurons. That probably explained why they were powerless, making my dad brainwashed, then dazed and confused, he thought. Stuart looked over at the dragon bird. Then he had some flashbacks. From unfreezing Rick, the events made the connection, and little by little more memories flooded his mind. Eventually all became clear to him. Rick, Rodney, Tinsel too. Doctor, it's you! I can't believe it's been so long since we've last seen each other. My dear boy, you've done me proud. Is the formula safe? Did you use it on the task force members? I'm sorry, Father. The formula was sabotaged at Mute City by Black Shadow, you, and Jody. You've actually used it on me. But unfortunately, I would have been like you if it wasn't for him. Tinsel was the one who saved a lot of you. Jack, Jody, EAD, Lucy. Rick came first, but Dr. Clash sacrificed himself during a race. What have we done? I'm not sure if I can forgive myself. He was a great man, with a mind that could surpass even mine. Don't blame yourself, Doctor. It wasn't all for nothing. We're here in Dark Star. There's still time to beat Black Shadow and end his game once and for all. What do you remember, Doc? An everlasting dream. Endless dream of true darkness. In it, I could only hear what was happening, but I couldn't recoil. My mind was absorbing all this malice, and that's all I reacted upon. Before that, I only hoped the Savior would help me and my friends. Savior? Who is it? Will we ever see him? Is it Falcon? Who are you talking about? Whatever it was, he knew it wasn't going to be a long lecture. There's something I've been meaning to tell all of you. He explained about the forces of dark and light that were created after the Big Bang. Black Shadow was known to hold the yin as he represented darkness and negativity, being hidden and passive, slow like the black bull and treacherous, whereas Falcon had the yang, which represented light, purity, quickness, and focus. Kind of like how Tinsel remembered the same concept of the championship belts from the Grand Prix last year. Rick's vision was right about saying that there's dark and light that govern the universe. This was the scene when Falcon faced off with Shadow's master Deathborn and he won. He had seen the first reactor mine. Then the creators were a nuisance and liars as she, Yugi, and Joey were trapped in their own cards. Yugi had the Dark Magician, Joey Red Eyes, and Tinsel with Blue Eyes. Somehow Black Shadow was resurrected upon Deathborn's and the creators' demise, and all three were symbolized having similar traits. Falcon then went to Stuart and Jody one day. They had some video info. There were 6 reactor mites scattered throughout the galaxy. He said in the 25th century the Milky Way will fall under evil if all are united in corrupt hands. A savior must hold them. Those were determined by whoever possesses them. Stuart heard these uncanny rumors before, but Falcon showed him. It was under his jurisdiction that one of those mites should be installed in the dragon bird. He once said that the falcon, the dragon, and the bull were brothers from a different time. The falcon represented purity, the bull was wrath, and the dragon was an unknown entity. Stuart said that Falcon and Shadow can't defeat each other by themselves. He revealed that only the savior, Wuji, can turn the battle to either Falcon or Shadow's favor. Rick experienced both sides, making him susceptible to each. Thus, all those predicaments have labeled him as such. The reason Zoda was awakened was because Darkmelion was afraid of the Savior's coming as the dragon was rumored to be. That time, Jody and Stuart couldn't find a skilled enough pilot who would handle the dragon bird. Zoda was the reason why they found Rick. Jody wasn't a firm believer in the legend, nor was she confident on reviving someone from cold sleep. She always thought it was there since he always hated him. There was a common missing link between them going back 150 years. Ever since Clang's observation during Falcon's training, they knew he could master it. That was why Falcon trusted him as his only loyal student, to protect him from further corruption. With the task force, Black Shadow was determined, looking for the reactor mites of light. The Federation had those mites, one in the Falcon, the Dragon Bird, and the Silver Comet. 3 of the Dark ones were in Shadow's possession. Blood Falcon had one was in Miss Killer's. Zoda mutated after he was awakened due to exposure. Is that why he was in and then out of cold sleep? Yes, that's exactly why. It's Rick's choice, and his destiny is to hold all 6 sacred mites. His machine, the Dragon Bird, was experimental, but it was upgraded from his demolished police cruiser. There was something very unusual in it. It wasn't confirmed until Falcon pointed out that Rick had one of the reactor mites. He was the 3rd element, the gifted racer that's vulnerable to either side. He represented the Wuji, without an extreme, without ultimate. So, I'm the one who will determine the galaxy's fate? Yes, you are. Of course, while we are here, the Blood Falcons must be exterminated. You heard a rumor that was more than one Falcon, as well as more clones. Tinsel remembered Rick pointing it out in the ropeless race while they were pursuing Jack. I think I know how it can be done. Come, He led the trio to a room Rick was too familiar with, the same one that housed him and his friends. The only difference was that there were more canisters were empty, and only several machines were left in a distant corridor. Death Anchor, Sonic Phantom, Moon Shadow, Golden Fox, and a cluster of Hellhawks. This machine was first designed as a missile by the Galactic Federation, but Zoda managed to steal it. The Dark Million customized it as a racer suitable for his insanity. No one knows if it's still operational, not even him. If we could just use it for its original purpose, perhaps it could obliterate this entire laboratory. That is, if the Falcons won't wake up. I can't wait to rid all of the disgusting vile black shadows set upon, including on me. Only wish Clank or Clash were here. Doctor. I can. I think. Wait, are you saying you're gonna drive this thing and destroy the lab yourself? You could get killed! Not unless I can jump out in time. Leave it to me. Even I can't wait to rid of any traces of Soda. I see. You are the savior after all. I'll take it, Doctor. It's a long shot. Father and son stood by, while Tinsel waited for the dragon bird. Wait for the explosion. Rick entered the missile-shaped vehicle. He was astounded Soda left his key in there. He was even curious as to why Black Shadow left it here. Nevertheless, he started up, drove it out of the lab. He met Octaman and told him to evacuate since the workshop would blow. He waited patiently for his pickup while Rick raced toward the research facility. Had top speed, but the handling was rough. Still, he was able to control it nicely toward the tubes. Quickly, he set it on cruise control. Mentally made the calculation. 1, 2, 3! Immediately jumped out of the Death Anchor just before it slammed into the foreboding subjects. He ran as fast as he could while the heat licked him. Tinsel drove the Dragon Bird and encouraged him to get in. With its high acceleration, he escaped along with the Golden Fox. But the aperture was closing. Booster fire! He gave his friends enough time. 2 machines soared over the 500-meter hole and landed safely on the other side. The walls lit up in numerous colors as these experimental chambers had finally churned. That was enough destruction to disarm the energy shield, allowing the galaxy runner passage. The shield is down. Let's go. Wheeler's waiting for us. Jody! You gotta see this! The metal capsule revealed a lifeless female. Her face as white as the brightest dwarf star, and her lips were blue. Who the hell is that? Cleopatra? No, Joey, it's Miss Killer. She was once Rick's girlfriend for 150 years. Black Shadow reanimated her body after she was killed in a car accident. He was in total disgust. Wheeler's not going to be happy when he sees this. What do you think we should do, Captain? I got an idea. They went to work redesigning the atrocious cell. They were so into their project that they didn't notice Jody sneaking out. Best friend was still out there. He wouldn't want to miss this opportunity and help him Falcon out. It was definitely a battle he would never want to be passive for. After that, Rick offered Leon and the other pilots to head back to the entrance and stay in the Galaxy Runner. He paused as he looked at that creepy-looking hand, welcoming him in its toxic grasp. After finding out he was the savior, there was only one more assignment for him. Tinsel. I know. This is something you have to do alone. You feel like you're never coming back. How do you... I knew you when you hesitated. I saw the feeling in your eyes. Rick gave Tinsel's remaining memos, the engagement ring for Haruka and the golden locket. Take them with you, so that you would always have a way to look back and remember me. I will never Get you, Rick. He leaned in for a deep kiss. Then, leaving his beloved, he took the Dragonbird EX and activated the booster fire, returning to Deathborn's stronghold. For the longest time, Legend of the Falcon, or rather the GP legend, was a very complicated thing. I understood Falcon was of course the main hero as well as the most iconic character. Black Shadow, or sometimes Deathborn, was the antagonist. However, Rick being labeled Savior was really challenging. Couldn't even wrap around this as the Savior. Aside from his developing talents from 150 years and the connection with Zoda, this was sort of a mind game. So, I came up with this concept from Pokemon Black and White, specifically Reshiram, Zekrom, and Kyurem. They're all one entity, but the Tao Trio actually represented the Yin, the Yang, and the Wuji. Since Rick was the chosen one, I decided to base him around Kyurem, third element. Let's see. The story revolves around saving the task force after their minds were contaminated. This fits. Rick was tainted, then the residue erased. Next, he trained under Falcon, and just now was revealed and Stuart implied for him to make a choice since he experienced both sides, as the complex gray area. So, there you have it. I still can't understand the legend, but I don't like the fact Captain Falcon's a title rather than an alias. What I've learned from the anime is the reactor mites can actually affect someone's mind, like how Zoda used it to give Rick visions of Haruka and Miss Killer about the past. She once claimed she was raised by black shadows since she was born. That was the effect from erasing her identity by using a reactor mite in the stasis tube. So, same one that Rick had. Was pretty disappointed that it took too long for Haruka to come to her senses near the end. Sorry, but she kinda had it coming. She was dead to begin with anyways. Oh man, I despised her. I mean, I liked her as a villain, but it took so damn long for her to come back. And she was frozen in carbonite. I thought she would never come back. Ugh. I hate the Japanese dubs. I love the English ones better. It's kind of a reference to Metroid, especially Fusion. And I made a reference to one of my collaborators' character, Luna Stewart, Ronnie's half-sister. And that would be Butterscotch Pie. So, at long freaking last, the finale of Ending It All has taken root. What would happen next? Find out in the final lap of F-Zero GP Legend Ending It All. Next time. Till then, this is the Ekron Rider signing out. Prepare yourself for the final lap. Well, futuristic racing fans, we're finally here. We went through 19 excruciating laps, and we have waited days for this. At long last, we've reached the end of the F-Zero GP Legends saga. Thank you so much for sticking with me and waiting patiently. This is where the series literally ends it all. Sure, the Japanese dub Falcon Densetsu did the same thing, but GP Legend didn't, and this is primarily for that. I would love to thank all my followers and collaborators for making this entire project possible. But enough small talk. Let's finish this thing. Here comes the finale. So Rick is the only one who can help you defeat Deathborn? Yugi pondered on the legend of the savior from Captain Falcon. He couldn't believe what he just heard. What if something happens to him? What if he fails? What if you fail? We mustn't worry about the worst-case scenario, Yugi, the bounty hunter said. Our lives are in mine and Rick's hands. He laid his hands on his shoulders. Listen, your Millennium Puzzle is impotent. and most of your cards have been rendered powerless. It's only up to me and the Savior. You must return to the ship. If I'm right, you must have gone to the Dark Reactor Core by now. I'll summon the Blue Falcon. Don't worry about us. Pray for our return, and hope for the best. Kid took a deep sigh. All right. Good luck to both of you. Please defeat Deathborn. He observed his hero's vehicle, which made it to him with minimal effort. Believe in me and the Savior, as you did with Yami. He closed the hatch and never returned. Yuki! He turned and saw his friend running toward him. Joey! What are you doing here? Not one who's gonna sit back and do nothing. Falcon told us to return to the Galaxy Runner and the Falcon Flyer. We can't stay here. The universe depends on him and Rick now. That's ridiculous. He expects us to bow down to this treacherous bastard? No way! We ain't backing down. We've dealt with countless maniacs while we were dueling, so we can surely help Rick and Falcon. Besides, they may need us. You taught me to never give up, and just now you're doing it? You're right, Joey. Yami would never want us to cower in fear. We always have to stand up to our greatest enemies. Otherwise, we'd never win. We saw those orbiting sensors around Earth, incapacitating its defenses. So we should get involved. Let's go then. Right. Yugi and Joey headed in the same direction as Falcon, to the first dead end, then drew out their cards. He summoned his Blue Eyes White Dragon while its companion activated his Red Eyes Black Dragon, although they had to hurry as the chamber was closing up fast. The dragons used their full breath, enabling them just enough time to allow them through. They were aghast at what they saw next. From head to stem there was a colossal machine that spun slowly. It was almost shaped like a human's chest, wide at the top and skinny toward the bottom. There were spirals and spirals of a track made of a hard synthetic material surrounding it. They each saw it gather energy with the same phase and color as the devices. Oh, Joey! It's the reactor core! So this is that damn contraption causing all this trouble. Each of the duelists saw the dark matter core rotate slowly as each of the spiraling tracks became larger. This almost reminded them of the surreal phantom road Falcon used to be in. Hell, they weren't even sure where he is now. Meanwhile, Rick was at a loss when the core slipped further and further away from him. Then he heard an altered laugh. You're that desperate to die in order to save the universe? Follow me. He did. He momentarily found the Dark Schneider racing around the track like an F5 tornado. Later kept on bashing the Dragon Bird. Rick was struggling to handle it with the 2 acquired reactor mites. In addition, he was also dealing with the vortex that was sucking him into the core itself. With the combined brutality, it was almost too much. Eventually, Yuki and Joey emerged and saw the showdown below. We can't stay here and watch. We gotta destroy this thing before our planet and the universe gets demolished. If only we can get the 3rd light reactor mite. The energy kept increasing, anticipating to feed on Rick's reactor mites. Booster fire! Death fire! Deathborn countered using his own darker duplicates. There was the Dragonbird EX combating the Dark Schneider, and the 2 onlookers barely knew how tough the killer machine was. Falcon was not exaggerating one bit, and he feared that Deathborn would be strong enough to not only activate the core, but make Rick fall into it. It's no use, Yug. They both have 2 of those reactor mites. They're at a standoff. Deathborn would succeed after all. Let's hope Captain Falcon can make it, Joey. He's the only one who can save us now. Unless, by sheer act of fate, he did. He entered into the arena and used his own booster fire, which went around the core at blinding speed. It was creating some shock waves in which the heart absorbed, slowing its rotation. Then he finally caught up and clipped Deathborn's deadly spiral. Ah, you again! I'll make sure that the dark reactor core stays active. Rick, you'll have to take my place. Once you do, we'll rid the reactor. Stay close to the core. But for some reason, Rick was holding back. He was too worried that destroying the reactor could also demolish both him and his friend, even though it was the only method to save his homeworld and the entire galaxy. It was almost too much with the incredible strength of the Schneider, and the fact he might fall in. It's the only way, and only you can destroy the dark matter reactor. Come on, you can do it. An overload? But if we do that, with the Blue Falcon, one reactor might can slow it down. You, on the other hand, can utterly destroy it. It was quite possible since he had two of them, as does the Dark Schneider. As Joey said, they were at a draw, and Deathborn was as desperate as ever to achieve his goal. However, Rick found the courage. Booster fire! The Dragon Bird EX surrounded itself in a vortex of light energy. Soon the Schneider didn't hesitate and followed suit. You're dealing with me now! Falcon challenged the astronomic abomination. He distracted him using his agility, but Rick was still hesitant. His machine made them bounce off like a couple of Beyblades. Rick's booster fire was far from enough. Even though the core absorbed more energy coming from the 3 light reactor mites, it kept surging more and more. His strength seemed to be wavering during that stunt. Ugh! I can't do it! Give it your all, Rick! The dragon kept moving faster as it drove around the core. The opposing effect was too strong. I'm trying my best, Falcon! Dark reactor core kept on spinning rapidly while the pathway swelled to a flat plane. The duelist did nothing but observe the terror. Then Yugi had an epiphany. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? I sure am. We gotta destroy this thing. And I think we know how to do it. Hey, look, there's Falcon. But he's not alone. There was another Bloodhawk gaining on him. They heard him chant, Blood Fire! Hellhawk was surrounded by a glowing crimson aura. He knew the Blue Falcon was there to give the Savior the upper hand. He was not going to let that happen. Deathborn sensed his only compatriot, Falcon's own surviving double. I've had enough of this, bully! He drew out a card from his deck. Time for you to shine! Come out! Red Eyes Black Dragon! He emerged after he laid it face up. Finally had the chance to use his most famous, powerful monster yet. Now, I combine it with Yugi's summoned skull. Kid drew a card designed with Death's skull and crossbones, so it could become the Black Skull Dragon. Two monsters melded, and Joey wasn't backing down. He'll never forget the time when he first encountered the carbon copy back at Lightning, nor chasing after the Blue Falcon with the speed-sensitive bomb he set up, or when he was giving Tinsel misery during the Grand Prix. I saved you once, I can save you again. He took out the Dragon Claws card and laid it down, then increased the dragon's attack prowess. Give Blood Falcon everything you got! The Archfiend took a deep inhale as it reared its head back. The Hellhawk activated its blood fire to try and knock the champion off. The Serpent gathered more energy. Flames as black as the darkest night were gathered, along with a few shades of molten red. Then fixed on its target, unleashed all its fury. Shadow Flare was too much for the clone. The onslaught sent him plummeting to his demise inside the core. With strategy in mind and no time to spare, Yugi took out 3 blue-eyes white dragons. Some flashbacks raced through his mind. From the showdown with Deathborn, standing up against the Creator Spirits, mocking their friend. Now you have become the champion of the 2 Grand Prix, and we will take out your soul from your body and turn it into our creation. You're all talk, but you can't walk the walk, right, Red Eyes? We may not be as good as Falcon, but we can protect him in conjunction with my Blue Eyes White Dragon. You don't stand a chance. His soul belongs to us. We'll be able to take yours with his when he loses. The three nuisances said one at a time. You don't stand a chance. His soul belongs to us. We'll be able to take yours with his when he loses. There was a trippy scenery with psychedelic background. The trio was dragged down inside their own corresponding cards, leaving their monsters inactive and helpless. It was claustrophobic. They thought they'd never get out and see the light. Yet by a slim chance, Falcon emerged victorious and the trio was free. When the memory ended, Yuki was as determined as ever. This one's for you, Falcon! You saved our lives before, and we will return the favor. I combined the three Blue Eyes so they can merge into the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon! Now I sent it to the graveyard and preserve its essence, so it can become the Blue-Eyed Shining Dragon! Joey, combine your strength with mine! His teammate nodded and both reptiles fixed their eyes. With the powers of both darkness and light, and using the concept of yin and yang, attack the reactor core! With Yugi's shiny nova and Joey's shadow flare, they each inhaled and exhaled to the heart of Darkstar. Their energy intertwined and hit dead center. Rick looked over at the spectacular display while the dragons were building their energy. Then he had a hallucination of tinsel filling him with a confidence he never had before. Rick, I believe in you. You're the man of my life. I know you can do it. Go for it.
Boost! Fire! Overdrive! Black Shadow! It seems you and I are destined to journey to hell together! Focus! What are you? I already died once. I'm taking it back with me. Now get out of here! Do I make myself clear, Captain Falcon?
I am omnipotent! Die!
Falcon! Captain Falcon!
What a powerful moment. Not counting the dragons. But yeah, the dragons made their mark. Couldn't find it. I wish they had Deathborn instead. Instead of escaping like he should have, he only pleaded one last time. Within the collapsing Darkstar, the dragon bird was led away by the jellyfish alien he saved earlier. Only it has grown to extra proportions. It was like 10 times its own size, and he theorized that he had been feeding on countless death soldiers. Just then his machine shut down. There was nowhere else to go, except that same parasitic jellyfish thing powered it up by shedding its own energy to it. They got out in one piece, excepting for Falcon and Deathborn. They managed to survive. The extraterrestrial wanted to return the favor to Rick. Then he saw it drift one last time while the foreboding fortress was no more, taking his best friend with it. The shining dragon and the skull dragon escaped as well, with the duelists riding on top. Much like UMA-31, the dark reactor core imploded, and it caused the shadowy orbiting devices to blow out like candles. The sky above Earth cleared up as the sun poked through the darkness. The rays penetrated the cloud and there were no casualties. Everything was still and quiet, and the commissioner from that moment on knew the universe was finally saved. The task force, Rodney, Gazelle, Andy, Clank, and the others saw the mayhem on a meteorite. Space rocks were floating by, and young geeks saw a few glimpses in the dark. Two of them headed their way as the legendary dragons escorted the duelists. Then there was the dragon bird floating freely. Tinsel wasted no time as she immediately ran to it, screaming for Rick. By the time it landed from the parasite that saved him, EAD lifted off the hatch. Tinsel laid her hands on the still pilot. Everyone cried his name, although Rick only looked devastated. "Rick! Where's Captain Falcon?" He struggled to lift his head as he looked at his friends with heavy, bloodshot eyes. There were still some tears flowing. "He sacrificed himself to save us. I'm sorry." He turned away as he sobbed. Tinsel fell to her knees. Jack laid a comforting hand on his shoulder. The gang's faces became glum. Clank ran a few inches away. He wiped hard at his eyes as he sunk. A large piece of moon rock darkened his vision, and he saw Falcon's own signature helmet in the blue falcon. The dragons volunteered to bring it down before they were dismissed. It was as if someone from a distance told them to, and they obeyed the command. Eventually everyone calmed down, and they gathered around the helmet Dr. Stewart held. Falcon's words echoed in Rick's grieving mind. "Rick Wheeler, you have to take my stead. You are the galaxy's rightful savior." He took a good long look as did Tinsel, then he took it. "You'll take his place?" Of course he would. It's what he always wanted. He needed to find someone suitable and trustworthy to replace him when he's gone. Tinsel, Jack, and Yugi told us that. If this is what you want, Wheeler, I'd be proud if you'd do just that. Falcon! Yugi was also crying when he tried to comfort him. Leon and Joey were close by their side. Everyone parted when his Millennium Puzzle began to glow. The eye was clear, the ray of light which eventually emerged as the Pharaoh. Yami walked up to him and smiled. "Yugi, Joey, you two have done a wonderful job saving the galaxy. I should owe my thanks to all of you. I will be forever in your debt, as you all have done the unsurmountable. My gratitude especially goes to you, Rick." Douglas J. Falcon has chosen correctly. If you are willing to accept and fulfill his legacy, he would be most thankful. He never would have wanted it any other way. Tinsel, take good care of him, and do this for Haruka. She should be at peace now. Of course. Dr. Theodore Clash would want Lucy, Clank, Andy, EAD, and Roy to fulfill his obligation. He shall rely on all of you. Make him proud. We will. I, too, can finally rest, knowing the universe is safe and in good hands. We have won. Dark Million's been defeated. I would consider the lot of you to be my champions. It was great meeting all of you. Farewell." Back inside the Galaxy Runner, Rick and Tinsel were sitting alone, looking at the Milky Way. They and the Falcon Flyer, who was piloted by Gazelle, would be approaching Earth in a matter of hours, giving the gang some time to mourn for their loss. Rick held her close, and she just closed her eyes while taking in his comfort. His eyes were also growing heavy as well. All he wanted to do was sleep and relax himself until he couldn't feel any more of the pain he endured. Falcon's sacrifice was nearly as hurtful as was Haruka's. "Rick!" He looked over at Tinsel, thinking she said his name. She didn't say a word. "Rick!" Standing in front of him in a gentle aura, it was her. "Haruka?" Tinsel looked in the same direction, and she was startled she could see her too. She never looked more fine, just as she did when Rick saw her in the heavens. They slowly rose and walked toward the pure spirit. "Rick, it's time to say goodbye." He reached out a hand, feeling her essence as warm as the sun. "It's nice to finally meet you, Tinsel." "Oh, You too, Ruka. Will you be watching over us? Of course I will, as with Douglas and Theodore. She touched Rick's arms with her delicate hands. Remember, Rick, that I'll always love you. You are the galaxy's savior. You have achieved your destiny. I'm certain Falcon would love to see you prosper and carry out his wishes. My dear Rick, I can never be more happier that you are truly my man. She touched his face and embraced her as if he was wrapped in a comfortable blanket. Somehow even Tinsel felt warm and fuzzy inside. The corpse looked just as beautiful as a kindred spirit. Then she gradually faded. Tinsel hung her head. Rick's eyes shot open that he sulked as he noticed she was gone. Nevertheless, he knew the three of them would always be there when anyone needs them, in their hearts. Tinsel walked up to him and he held her close. He took out the one memo he always had for the past 150 years, her engagement ring. Made a weak grin knowing she'll finally rest with Soda and Dark Million vanquished for good, as well as no longer having her body be controlled by a tainted soul who was Miss Killer. He then looked up at the silent void. He silently prayed. Rest in peace, Ruka. After that, Jody heard the news from the commissioner about everything that transpired, including Tinsel's resignation. By default, he found out that Rick Wheeler was indeed the champion of the F-Zero Grand Prix. She passed it on to Stuart. They, along with Jack and the others, were ecstatic for his success. They would miss both Rick and Tinsel dearly. Nevertheless, they were happy, knowing it was for the best. About a week passed since Tinsel returned to Earth, and she was packing the last of her belongings into the confinements of the comet. Just as soon as she was about to leave, the doc summoned her to the office. It was there that Jody gave Tinsel one last assignment. To take care of him. I will. I promise you. Rick Wheeler would always want you by his side, even when he's bounty hunting. Yes, of course, Doc. I hope you would visit us again, Tinsel. You and Rick are welcome here any time. Thanks, guys. We're all in your debt, Tinsel. If it wasn't for you, Black Shadow and Dark Million would have let the universe fall into their corrupt hands. It was you who never gave up on the cause, and you rescued us all. Please, don't forget about us. I won't. Thank you. Jody! There are 5 new recruits waiting for you. They seem very anxious. They can't wait any longer. We could actually use them on the force. Leon, Beastman, the others? Whew! They're exceptional. I'll meet them in Egypt, Tanaka. Good. Tinsel requested to meet with them. They got her permission. As she left and said goodbye to her friends, she encountered them in Octaman. They offered to become the task force's new members in Tinsel's and Rick's place. We knew you were going to resign after you dealt with Jody. Stuart said it was all up to us because of you and Rick. Yeah, it's over. You guys don't have to join. You all fought Dark Million well. You're welcome to see them. Wait! Quitting again? What do you mean? We want to do this, Tinsel. You guys actually want to join the Elite Mobile Task Force? Hell yeah! For Falcon! She gave in with a snicker. She had a feeling they would make excellent allies for the greater good. It eventually became official as every member became a new entryman to the Galaxy platoon. As for Yugi and Joey, they were duelists, so their work was done already, except for piecing together Yami's lost memories. Drac and Roger resumed their delivery business, and the lost machines were finally registered in their names, making them the permanent owners. Octaman's family moved to Mute City, though they'd still support the Decorans by winning races and share a better impression to the Federation. While Gomar and Shiel will try to find some life partners since both Earth and Port Town have a diverse population. They each found a better way to make money by earning profits and making a more legitimate business ethic from selling century-old auto parts. Beastman retired from hunting thanks to capturing Biorex and overcoming his childhood fear, and at long last he removed the dinosaur costume. He revealed an army green t-shirt and gray capris, and tattoos of stripes from different species were branded. He had a teal mohawk sticking out from the back of his head. Leon would visit Sal from time to time while supporting it and his pup several light years away, both as a part-time soccer coach and the head of the orphanage. He was also courteous enough to support Clank's home, Forno, as well. Mighty Gazelle joined the Federation as lifeguard for all accidental victims. He was also a part-time janitor. He and Clank had never been more whole. The boy was hired as a technician and junior data executive. Pretty soon, if he'd be old enough, he'll see his dream that was an F-Zero racer using the Dragobird EX. Until then, he was a promising mechanic much like Clash. Andy still remained as the boss for the Falcon House, honoring the fallen hero. He's taken in both Clank and Gazelle and became a father figure to both of them. He still sees Rick, Tinsel, Jack, and his other friends, giving them great advice and support. In addition, he does spend some quality time reuniting with his sister. Leon and Lucy were closer than a couple should, working together in the task force. Jack got a date with Stuart's daughter Luna. Rodney's hospital was repaired and business was booming thanks to the help of his family. Their father would always be by his family's side. Jody spent more time with the doc, both professionally and personally, almost to the point of a possible engagement, rumors said. Tanaka kept a watchful eye over the organization, and EAD made a lasting relationship with his love interest, Kate. He was the first to visit her overbooked expensive concerts. Meanwhile, in his shared apartment, Rick decided to don on Falcon's uniform in front of a tall mirror. Wow, that looks great on you. I'm still gonna miss Douglas, though. I kinda liked you better as you were. Don't worry, I'll only wear this during some F-Zero races, as well as hunting some bounty. You'll still see me as I am. Does that mean you'll be using the Blue Falcon, the GT? I'm carrying on his legacy, remember? I'll also be visiting his fortress in Port Town, too. Don't you miss your machine, the Dragonbird? I'll use it from time to time, and Clank will have loads of fun tweaking with both machines. It's gonna be tough to live under these conditions. Rick may be gone more often and she wouldn't be with him as much. Will we see our friends again? Of course we will. When duty calls, we'll always be there. Or if we just want to visit. Although, there is one more thing we must do. What is it? It's finally time. Rick led Tinsel through warp gate to planet Alcatran. They arrived at the second White Land track where she could finally overcome her fear on crossing over the gap. Are you ready, Tinsel? As long as you are, Rick. She was focused but extremely nervous. It was the Silver Comet versus the Blue Falcon GT. It was slightly altered from the original model. He was at first reluctant, but he decided to do so to make it have more speed and less control. Thus, thanks to Clank, its boost has been sacrificed, and the grip stat was reversed from its acceleration. Other than the yellow stripes behind its cockpit, the GT looked nearly identical. The race started after a slow 4-second start. Rick gave the signal and they were neck to neck until the Comet slipped across the treacherous snow and ice. After a few tricky curves, there they saw it. The gap! It's just ahead! Go for it, Tinsel! As they were getting closer, the Blue Falcon hit the brakes, leaving the Comet's speed. She looked back, wondering why he stopped so suddenly. But then, she immediately entered the jump. She was going on a steady descent, and she couldn't believe she was dealing with it again after 13 years. Then an epiphany came to her. Earlier, Jim in Port Town taught her that she has to keep the Comet's nose up, making a longer jump. She could land lighter. As the memory ended, she hurriedly grabbed the nozzle to the right. The nose of the Comet ascended, allowing more air. She kept pressing the gas pedal as hard as she could, just to clear over. Then, Tinsel succeeded! She landed gently on the frigid road and turned her vehicle as it kept sliding across the ice before she hit a guardrail. She hesitated, awed by the fact she nailed it. Then, with enough distance and speed, she headed back over, meeting Rick at the other side. In a way, he wanted her to conquer her fear, just as she helped him amend his scars by defeating Zoda, knowing Haruka would rest in peace now the Dark Million's gone. Rick! I did it! I finally cleared the gap! I made my way back unscathed. I knew you can do it, Tinsel. Thank you for always believing in me. I couldn't have done it without you. It was actually warmer in his arms than in the comet. Rick felt the same. As she opened her eyes, she saw something bright fly across the sky. Rick! What is it? They parted, and she pointed up. They each saw a fiery celestial body tread the air. It's a comet, he observed in wonder. Tinsel barely said a word. There was no better moment than this, as they watched the comet sail within the heavens. We would call it the Tinsel Dragon. She couldn't be any more happier. From that moment on, the loving pair will feel complete. Forever. And with that, ending it all, and GP Legend, well, has ended. Shadow Flare is something I made up since I can't find Skull Dragon's signature move. I found the Shining Nova, though. Made his mark on Deathborn, finally, as it wasn't able to do so before. I didn't like the idea of having Soda, Bob, and the others involved, so Yugi and Joey had to take the job. Not a fan of Seto Kaiba. Kind of made up Beastman's actual appearance without the costume, which was actually revealed, the same with Falcon's. So there are the songs here. Whiteland 2 theme plays. Of course, the moment of truth will be heard in this story when Falcon sacrifices himself, prevents Deathborn from rising, as well as the ending with English lyrics, which you'll hear in a minute. After that, then it goes with my version of the credits theme, although I kind of changed it, but you can look to it on DeviantArt. Rick Wheeler, please make him as a canon immigrant, and perhaps put him in the next Smash Bros. And hey, all these guys need someone to go to, especially since Leon, Chris, the Huck Miners, and Octoman are now recruits to the task force. Finally, the universe can be in full circle. I've completed my most precious, long-awaited story yet, and it took 13 years to finally pull it off. I'd like to give special thanks to my collaborators for their ideas and support. This project could never have been done. Desperately hope that the franchise would see a brand new light with another installment. Maybe complete the Americans of the anime. You know, just like One Piece. Farewell, F-Zero fans, and keep the faith. That was a great ending. I'm finally finished with the fic! I am so happy about this. Oh man, I would always love this story. This is definitely one of my best F-Zero projects ever. Even in general as well. So, I'm not sure what's in store for my next OBS Studios project. But until then, this is the Ekron Writer signing out. Take care, futuristic racing fans, and keep the faith. And I leave you with this astonishing finale.